So it's been about 2 months now since the release of the DJI Flip here, and over the past few months I've been using this in all different scenarios and in various conditions from minus 15 degrees to plus 30 degrees, as well as going past DJI's recommendations on how to fly and where to fly, meaning high winds, above water and over cliffs or out from cliffs, with and without a smartphone and a dedicated RC remote. I also took this back to Hawaii to make sure that I covered all aspects to find out if this was a hit or miss as a travel drone. So in today's video, I want to share my unsponsored long-term pros and cons after using the Flip as my daily drive here at home, as well as a travel drone going back to Hawaii. And by the end of this video, you'll hopefully have a better understanding on whether or not this is a drone for you and what you need to be aware of before buying it. So let's start with image quality. If you ask me, I think the image quality on the Flip here is as good as it gets for under $500, or as many of you have stated, under $300, as the Flip is only sold as a combo with the lowest including the RC-N3 controller, which makes the Flip cheaper. However, the final price and the price you have to pay is currently $439 US. But when it comes to the actual image quality coming from this drone and the 1/1.3-inch CMOS sensor, I think this is absolutely outstanding. Just take a look at this. So the Flip has, like I stated, a 1/1.3-inch CMOS sensor, same as the Mini 4 Pro, so even at half the price you'll get just as good image quality, which is pretty impressive for a drone this cheap. Now on this trip I also used a variety of different features to see how they performed in a typical travel scenario, just like I do with all new drones, and the Flip performed just as good as all these other drones, except for when it became a little bit too windy, which I will talk to you about in a sec. But I would say the real benefit here is that I'm able to use this as an automated tracking drone whenever I want to grab a few shots here and there, just like I'm used to with the DJI Neo, which has been fantastic over the past 6, 7, 8 months now. But with the DJI Flip here, I also get the better image quality, which has a lot to say for me personally. I mean, I do love the DJI Neo, but I would also love to get a really nice looking image, and especially pictures, which I'm also going to talk to you about in a sec. So basically, when I want to get a little bit further or optimize the footage by using manual settings, I can just connect it to the RC2 controller here, and I will be able to reach longer distances and basically get more out of the drone by taking additional better looking photos, panoramas, and also keep track of a subject whilst using spotlight and still be able to maneuver the drone freely around. And all these things just makes it easier to use for all types of shots and scenarios with and without a controller, in my opinion. And I also think my favorite feature or the ability on this trip was actually to be able to use a little bit of all the features with the controller, without the controller, with the smartphone, and just being able to mix all these things together was a really great experience. So let's talk about ease of use and the user experience. First of all, there is no other DJI drone here on the market which is this easy to use out of the box, which has this good image quality. All you have to do is to unfold the arm basically and select the mode you want by pressing the mode button on the side here, and once you have the mode you want to use, you just press hold it and it will automatically start that mode. So because it's so easy to use, I was able to capture all kinds of videos basically, and videos that I normally wouldn't capture because of the time it takes to connect the controller, wait for GPS, select tracking, decide tracking distance and height, and then press record and then start. So for this shot here, I just unfolded the arms and the drone started automatically and it was already set to follow, so I just pressed and hold the button and I got the shot. Maybe not the most scenic video you have ever seen, but it just adds to the whole story of us walking to the beach. And when I wanted to get a little bit closer to Chinaman's hat here, I could just power on the RC2 controller, which gave me longer reach and full manual control, and just fly away basically to capture some cinematic shots. Now for this I also use some ND filters, which I highly recommend if you're flying in bright conditions. These filters will basically work as sunglasses for your drone and allow you to lower the shutter speed in order to capture smoother and better looking videos with less contrast and stickiness, I would say. So since the Flip has an aperture of f1.7, it means that more light will come through the lens, which results in a higher shutter speed if you use auto settings. So the higher your shutter speed is, the more sticky your video might look, but you can actually use an ND filter here to counter this and basically achieve the optimal setting. So if you record your videos in 4K 30 FPS, your optimal shutter speed will be twice of your frame rate, so 1/60. However, if you're using auto settings or full auto settings and you use the D-Log-M color profile, you could actually get away by not using an ND filter, as you can correct most of this in post, as you can see in this clip right here, which doesn't really look that bad, even though the shutter speed is set to a couple of thousand. But ND filters will definitely make things easier and better. Personally, I prefer to use Freewell's ND filters and have been using them for years now without any issues, and the quality seems to be pretty solid. So I'll leave a link to those down below if you want to check these out. There's also a lot more filters on Amazon if you want to stick with a different brand, but personally Freewell is the way to go for me. Now, let's talk about flying with your smartphone. Flying with your smartphone can be really convenient and really frustrating. And at first I really liked it, mainly because I was flying in optimal conditions here at home with no wind, no interferences. But when I tested this in Lanikai, I had a few struggles and some annoying stops. So the first one is the wind. When flying the DJI Flip with a smartphone in windy conditions, this is a pain because it drifts back and forth and it's really hard to get a proper good looking shot because you can't really keep it as stable with your smartphone as you can with a dedicated RC controller. And as for range and the locked home point, even though I moved with the drone and kept my phone in my hand at all times, it didn't get far before it stopped, which made no sense whatsoever.
Max flight distance reached.
So if we're expecting to have a flawless experience when flying with your smartphone when you're out traveling, well, you won't. It's much better to use the included RC-N3 controller or just invest in the better and more convenient RC2 remote and just keep the smartphone for monitoring your flights or record audio through your smartphone if you need to make a vlog or say something like that. Or you can use a DJI mic and connect that for even better audio. But hopefully DJI can improve on this as soon as possible, as the Hover Air X1 Pro Max has no issues when flying with the smartphone, and I also have more features on that, and I also have Return to Home, though Hover really lacks a proper dedicated RC remote, which already comes with the Flip, so I guess Flip takes the win for most users on this part. But now let's move over to photos. just wow. I'm not the person that takes a lot of photos with my drones, but that might have changed with the Flip. Not because it's better than the Mini 4 Pro or the Air 3S, but rather the fact that I actually took some of these photos and I put more effort into it, and these looks absolutely stunning and is definitely getting on my walls here in the office. I also took some panorama photos, which looks even better, but for some reason the stitching was way off on most of them, which is a bummer, especially when it affected the parts I really wanted to keep. So next time I'll make sure to take some extra shots just to make sure that I get the perfect one with perfect stitching, but of course this could be because of the high winds and the extreme gusts. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about wind. When it comes to wind, this is where the Flip here really struggles. So when I first reviewed the DJI Flip here, we had like almost no wind for weeks, so it was hard to say how this would behave in strong winds and high gusts. And also doing a test, just a static test, is good, but I prefer to, use it in an actual travel scenario to see the benefits and the pros and the cons and the limitations. So that's what I did. And traveling to Hawaii, where we had wind speeds between 20 and 30 miles per hour and gusts reaching high as 50 miles per hour or 22 meters a second, I was quite nervous about taking off, to be honest. So the problem is not that the Flip couldn't handle it, and to this day, I still haven't experienced any failures, flips, flyaways, or any issues with any of my drones flying in extreme conditions. I mean, the Flip has a max wind resistance of 10.7 meters a second, and I was flying in 13 to 22. The problem is that you might find it hard to fly back, even when you lower the altitude of your drone. You might also experience that the drone is drifting, as it just can't maintain a consistent hover because of the bigger form factor and the larger prop guards here, which makes it easier for the wind to just grab and push around. And you also might experience some gimbal glitches. As you see, the gimbal is twitching a little bit because the wind just pushes into it. It really struggles in really high winds, so that's also something that you need to consider if you're looking for your first drone and the DJI Flip is on your list. When it comes to flying these different drones, especially the Neo here, the Flip, and the Avata, for example, these so-called screamer drones, noise and sound is something that keeps coming back and keeps becoming the big question of these drones. But I've been using the Flip, the Air 3S, and the Mini 4 Pro and the Neo all in the same scenarios to see people's reactions, and to be honest, they just don't care, and neither should you. So you have to realize that the place you want to fly, let's say you travel to a place, you want to fly your drone in that place. That place is probably the same place as everyone else wants to fly their drone, like here on Waikiki to capture the sunset. The biggest problem is actually flying into other drones. So for a place like this, I would rather care less about the sound of the drone and annoying people, and more about the actual airspace and if there's any other drones there or maybe birds that might cause a safety risk. Now let's talk about battery life. I was getting about 23 minutes on average throughout my flights, and even though I didn't fly as far for most of the time, the wind really made the Flip run overtime. But having a total of 3 batteries made me think less of the actual flight time, as I could just get my shots, swap the batteries, and put them all to charge as we drove from place to place, so not really a big concern there. And always get a few extra batteries. It will only make it more convenient and you'll have a better experience. End of story. That's also why I recommend the Fly More combo if you decide to go for the Flip, because it includes those 2 extra batteries, and you also get a convenient charger, and you get a shoulder bag and the drone and a controller. So you will be ready to get out there without any battery complaints, basically. So you can fly for a total of stated 90 minutes, but on average you're gonna be able to fly for about an hour with these 3 batteries, give or take the environment you're flying and how much wind it is, how far you fly, and so on. I'm gonna do a circle or a helix with the DJI Flip here as well, just to show you guys the footage coming from this one. And hopefully, it's a little bit windy here, but hopefully it pulls off and doesn't fly away or crash into any of these bushes down here, because I'm not going for it if it drops down there. But I think it's going to survive, because it can be flown in some pretty heavy winds, but the thing is that it drifts a lot if the wind is, you know, pretty significant. So let me just give it a shot and see what happens. And also, one of the things that DJI say is that don't fly over cliffs. It's straight down, literally straight down there. Hopefully it comes back. A little bit scared. Yeah, no issues flying over cliffs. Struggles a little bit with the wind, but nothing too... Yeah, it's doing pretty good actually. And this is also where all the gusts are coming up of the mountain here, and it did pretty good. Whew. There we go. Now, we can't really do a long-term video without having some pros and cons, right? So the first con, which I can see being a huge con for especially beginners, is going back to wind. Even though I managed to pull off some amazing shots in quite extreme winds, I have never flown a drone that gave me this many warnings as the Flip here. I mean, it was flashing all over. Strong winds all over the controller all the time, every single time I took off. And I must admit, at some point I was quite scared of losing it, because the way it was just angled in the sky was insane at times. So the only thing I could do was to lower the drone and just hope for the best. Despite the Flip pulling it off, you know, as a beginner, getting all these warnings and perhaps seeing the gimbal flip every now and then might actually prevent you from getting the shot or even fly. Another con is related to a smartphone and photos. The photos taken when you use the Flip with a smartphone is nowhere close to the image quality you get using a dedicated RC controller like the RC2. I'm not sure exactly why, but despite these limitations in distance, feature, settings, and so on, the Flip still has the exact same sensor, the exact same camera, with or without a remote. So I was a bit shocked when I saw how big of a difference this was. So when I'm taking photos in the future with the Flip, I'm definitely going to use the RC controller. Because DJI sells this with a controller, and that's the only way of buying this as of now, you will still have the option to capture the best photos and videos. So I think I'm just going to leave those smartphone photos for now. But the question is, should you buy the DJI Flip or the Mini 4 Pro? I think that's the biggest question right now. The Neo is a really nice sidekick and perfect if you want to learn FPV. But if FPV is not for you and you only want a self-tracking hybrid drone with good image quality, once you get the Flip, there is no going back. I mean, it has its weaknesses, so does the Neo here, but you know, that image quality really sits high for me personally, even though this is really convenient. If you want to learn more about the Neo here, I have a dedicated travel video specifically made for this drone in the description below that I recommend you to check out. Now, I also took my Mini 4 Pro to Hawaii this time, but I didn't use it once. There's two reasons to that. So this time both our kids joined, so there was no proper hike, and most of the time we were actually ending up going to different beaches, which was a first, and it was quite nice. And the other reason is that the Flip basically did everything I wanted, everything I needed on this trip, from capturing stunning photos and panoramas to cinematic videos around the island, so I didn't really feel the need to pop out the Mini 4 Pro, even though it is a better drone. And like I said in my previous videos, I always bring the Mini 4 Pro regardless of where I'm going, just in case I need it for a specific shot or you know, just because it's so awesome and I want to use it. But if I didn't have a drone right now and I was also on a smaller budget and was looking for my first drone to capture similar videos to what I've shown you in today's video without the need to fly far, the Flip would be a really great choice. The only limitations though is the wind. So if gusts are high, fly low or don't fly at all. And it's not said that the higher you fly, the further away you fly, the better videos you're gonna get. And basically, you know, the further away the landscape is, the less details you'll get in the landscape anyway. So you might just fly a little bit closer, which is why I always keep a max distance of about 1,000 meters, which also keeps me, you know, aware of the surroundings around the drone, especially when you fly in Hawaii. Even though you're allowed to fly in these different places, there's always a chopper coming in. If it's the Coast Guard or if it's these tourist choppers, you always have to keep an eye out for these things, and you will have a better idea of the environment around the drone itself and where you're at if you're not flying that far away. So that's my roundup for a long-term review of the DJI Flip here. Links to everything will be down below, and make sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button on your way down there. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.